The honourable member for Scarborough Rouge Park.
Madam Speaker, I'm absolutely delighted to be here, re-elected as the Member of Parliament for Scarborough Rouge Park, and to speak for the second time in the 43rd Parliament. I want to begin by acknowledging that we're gathered here on the traditional lands of the Algonquin peoples, and I recognize the historical responsibility that rests on this Parliament towards advancing reconciliation. I'm indebted to so many people who worked so hard to get me elected, and permit me, Madam Speaker, to acknowledge them. First and foremost, I want to thank the voters in Scarborough Rouge Park, all 31,360 of them, for entrusting me to represent their interest in Ottawa. I pledge to work for everyone living in Scarborough Rouge Park, and I look forward to working for them each and every day. I want to thank my campaign team, those who knocked on doors, those who cooked for us, those who donated, those who made calls, those who installed signs, cleaned up, and did everything to ensure that our message went to the people of Scarborough Rouge Park. I want to thank all my volunteers for their tireless work and our staff for all that they have done to support me. And I want to thank my campaign manager, Dharni Rameswaran, and campaign director, Gautam Kurusamy, for the exceptional work in leading the team to attain the highest margin of any winning candidate in Ontario. Thank you. Walking in here last week, I realized the enormous sacrifices that we all make to be here. It's an incredible honor to be here each and every day, but there's a cost for being here. For me, it is a sacrifice of my family. For every day that I'm here, I'm away from them. I know that Bhairavi and Sahana, my daughters, know more now than they did in 2015 of the work that we do here. In fact, Bhairavi was part of the climate action rally and speaks to me about the need to address climate change with an urgency. They're the reasons why I'm here, and as many of you with kids can probably attest to, so that I could be part of a government that makes this world a better place to be. I cannot thank them enough for all their sacrifices, but I will work each and every day to ensure that we leave a better future for them. As many of you know, Harini, my partner, is my rock, and I'm so fortunate to have her candid advice, support, and unwavering love. Thank you, Harini. Madam Speaker, I wish to thank all those members who served here in the previous Parliament, and to welcome the new ones from all parties who have taken their seats with a determination and resolve to work for their constituents. While I may not agree with their viewpoints on some issues, I pledge to work collaboratively to make life better for all Canadians. And I'm so excited to be able to work with the Scarborough Caucus, all 6 of us, to advance local priorities for the people of Scarborough. Madam Speaker, I'm very proud of the speech from the throne and the priorities outlined by our government. I know that many of my colleagues have spoken in support of the throne speech, and I agree with all of their sentiments. I want to highlight some priorities for our government and for me personally in the work that I do in Parliament. Madam Speaker, our government fulfilled our commitment to establish the Rouge National Urban Park. It is 79.1 square kilometers, and it was established fully in the last Parliament. We have a management plan. We will continue to ensure that ecological integrity is front and center in all the decisions that are made relating to the park. There's so many organizations that worked hard to establish the park, and I want to thank them for their tireless efforts. We cannot even contemplate the depth and breadth of the park once it fully comes to life. Much of the work has already been done in the last 5 years, but there's much, much more work to do. And I want to thank the work and the collaboration of the Toronto Zoo and the City of Toronto and all the surrounding municipalities for their support in establishing and expanding the park. I know as part of our commitment during the campaign, we committed to planting 2 billion trees, and I hope many, at least 1 million, will be planted in the Rouge National Park. Madam Speaker, during the election campaign, the recurring theme at the door was why our government hasn't moved fast enough to address climate change. Over the past several weeks, I've visited several schools, elementary, middle, and high schools. Our kids in grade 5, 6, 7, and 8, and in high school kept asking why we're not moving fast enough. They're challenging us to do more, and in fact, Canadians as a whole have challenged us to work together to do more to address climate change. Our government intends to do just that. Building on our climate action plan that places a price on pollution, our government is committed to attaining net zero emission by 2050. We will ban single-use plastics by 2021. We'll protect 25% of our shores and 25% of our land mass by 2025, and that number will be 30% by 2030. Attaining net zero emission would not be easy. It will require enormous commitment from everyone, and in order to ensure that we are able to reach this target by 2050. Finally, Madam Speaker, I want to highlight several very important human rights issues that I've been working on, and I know time is quite limited, so I want to first start off with Sri Lanka, where recent developments have brought into question the challenges that's facing the country. This year is the 10th anniversary of the end of the armed conflict in Sri Lanka. Last June, this Parliament unanimously passed a motion asking the United Nations to undertake an investigation into genocide on the island. Sadly, Sri Lanka has returned a war criminal to power, along with his cohort of despot military leaders who have sent chills down the spine of civil society actors on the island and worldwide. Now more than ever, truth, peace, accountability, and reconciliation on the island seems far out of reach. I'm deeply saddened to hear of the media personnel who are muting their voices and their reporting. It pains me to see lawyers and civil society activists who are self-censoring and limiting their advocacy, and I'm shocked to see embassy staff who are intimidated by the Sri Lankan Secret Service. I'm extremely offended that Shavendra De Silva, an individual accused of international atrocities, continues to lead the Sri Lankan military. And I'm stunned that Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who was the Minister of Defense and in charge of the Sri Lankan Army forces during the brutal final phase of the armed conflict in 2009, has become its president. And that Mahinda Rajapaksa, his brother, who was the president in 2009, is now its prime minister. Sadly, respect for pluralism, diversity, tolerance, and justice cannot be found on the island. Sri Lanka, like countries similar to Myanmar, have enjoyed international impunity. Impunity from prosecution for atrocities committed, and leaders have come to power notwithstanding their past behavior. Sadly, a democracy where the rule of law on the island is in shatters, strict majoritarianism prevails, and where the international community has failed to seize the responsibility to prosecute perpetrators of atrocities cannot last forever. History has taught us that while justice may be delayed, I'm absolutely certain that similar to what's happening in Myanmar today with the International Court of Justice, Sri Lanka too will face justice. Madam Speaker, I work with a number of very important human rights organizations, and I want to highlight the work of the Scholars at Risk program. There are currently 23 post-secondary institutions in Canada that work to support scholars and academics who are at imminent risk to their lives. And I support the work of SARS, and I hope that we will have an opportunity to support them as well in this Parliament. Madam Speaker, I came to Canada as a refugee when I was 10 years old, and for me, the issues of refugees have always been important to me and always been center to the work that I've done. The last Parliament, I was part of like many of my colleagues here, in welcoming the refugees from Syria as they came and landed at our airports. And like many of you, we were supporting them. And I see today that there are 70 million people who are displaced and 26 million refugees. And we, as a country, while we've done a lot, there's a lot more that we need to do. Very important unfinished business from the last Parliament is the implementation of the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, and I look forward to working with all my colleagues here to implement UNDRIP. And Madam Speaker, there are many more things from a human rights perspective that I wish to advance in this Parliament. And I said yesterday on Human Rights Day, human rights is not a partisan issue. It's an issue that involves all of us and is so fundamental to this Parliament. And I look forward to working with each and every one of my colleagues to advance human rights both locally and internationally. Thank you, Madam Speaker.